This is your last, like before, you open your door, or you are not coming out of the house. That will not be. That is why we got back together last time we broke up.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to Shivani Statements, where today I'll be reviewing a true crime case so hot that these summer temperatures don't even stand a chance. Anyway, the documentary The Crash became an immediate Netflix and global hit after its release in May, and of course I had to watch it with my friends. And I will say, initially I thought maybe I'd listen to some Travis halfway through to get boring, but boy was I proven wrong. And without further ado, that's enough prefacing, let's dive into the case. Okay, so the story mainly follows Mackenzie Shirilla, who was 17 at the time of the accident, and drove the car that killed her boyfriend Dominic Russo and her friend Davian Flanagan. The three of them all attended the same high school in Strongsville, Ohio, and were part of the same friend group. On the night of July 30th, 2022, Mackenzie, Dominic, and Davian all go to a graduation party before moving to what's described as a more chill sleepover at 11 p.m. And finally, around 5:30 in the morning, Mackenzie, Dom, and Davian all get in Mackenzie's car to go home. And the phone data shows that just a few minutes later, Mackenzie makes a controlled right turn before slamming on the accelerator and crashing into a brick wall at nearly 100 miles an hour. This crash killed Dom and Davian at the scene, and Mackenzie survived severely injured and is airlifted to the nearest hospital. Despite Mackenzie's lack of recollection of the events and denial of ill intentions, the court found her guilty on all counts. As you can see, it's a pretty crazy case, and now I'm going to start giving my overall thoughts. First, let me just say, this case is a prime example of a girl whose actions can all tie back to a lack of parental oversight. We learn early on that Natalie and Steve Shirilla constantly coddle and excuse Mackenzie's behavior and treat her as this mature, innocent, sweet girl, which is just disproved by everything from her social media to disciplinary records. Early on, Mackenzie's parents already let her move in with Dominic, and they are also letting her do alcohol and marijuana both underage. In fact, on the show, Steve Shirilla even recounts a time that Mackenzie was suspended, and he says something along the lines of, quote, "I asked my daughter, did you do it? She says no, and I say, good enough for me. Let's go." And I think this is just mind-boggling, but it also shows that, of course, if a girl does not have any accountability and is never taught right from wrong by her parents, she's gonna do whatever she wants. And maybe halfway through the documentary, we learn the most crucial truth. Mackenzie and Dom's relationship was the exact opposite of the high school sweetheart narrative Mackenzie's family and Mackenzie's best friend were trying to paint. In fact, Angelo Russo, Dom's brother, testified that the relationship was highly volatile and toxic. And one potential crash motive was that in the weeks prior, Dominic was trying to break up with Mackenzie for good, which she was not going to have. And around here was when I realized there was really no case for Mackenzie. She was not impaired, she was not intoxicated beyond her normal marijuana amounts, and her driving was completely methodical until the last split seconds. Actually, while speeding, the evidence shows that the car briefly changes to neutral, which was a key sign that Dom and Davian were likely fighting for the steering wheel in their final moments. And then in the courtroom, the Shirilla selfishness only gets worse. First, they tried to say Mackenzie blacked out due to her POTS diagnosis, despite the Shirillas letting her drive and literally never mentioning this diagnosis before. I'm also no doctor, but it's common knowledge that if you blacked out, your foot would come off the accelerator, not press down on it at 100 miles an hour. Specifically, Natalie Shirilla says this in court.
Dominic, okay, I'm asking you for leniency, and Davian, he's a new friend, and I'm so sorry.
What does that mean? His life is worthless?
No.
And just days after the crash, Natalie is already DMing modeling companies on her behalf, and shortly after, Mackenzie is also partying in her wheelchair and enjoying herself. But despite all of this, Netflix has not scrutinized her nearly enough. Now for the part you've all been waiting for, just kidding, my thoughts on the documentary. And I'll say, don't get me wrong, it was addicting from start to finish, But Netflix fell very short in capturing the reality of the situation and serving justice to the victims. For example, they interviewed Davine Flanagan, Davion's younger sister, who suggested Mackenzie was an extremely bad influence from the start, and even that Bubba was not Davion's real best friend. But despite this, her screen time is microscopic compared to Rosie Graham, who, by the way, is now a workout influencer with over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. As someone who's watched a lot of true crime documentaries, it comes down to one of their main principles. True crime documentaries should, and normally do, prioritize the victim's narrative. But the crash did not do that. Even in the crash's final moments, Netflix includes statements from the Shirilla family that Dominic was the main abuser in the relationship, that he was the violent one. This is in the finale, after we've already seen 80 minutes of facts stacked up to prove otherwise, and by doing this, they almost excused her actions and downplayed the severity of the event. Not to mention, I was very confused on why they didn't interview other people outside of Rosie Graham and the two victims' families. Why didn't they interview people who were bullied by Mackenzie at school, or outsiders who might have observed some toxicity in their relationship, or at least include proof of reaching out to them? Or why didn't they interview the people Davine said were her brother's real best friends, right? Luckily, many other podcasters and outside researchers even feel the same way, and they're now coming forward with crucial evidence either underemphasized by or altogether omitted from Netflix's documentary. One of these pieces of evidence, which the prosecution even used in court to make their case, was that just 3 days before the crash, Mackenzie is seen driving the exact same route she drove when she killed Dominic and Davion, which is outright evidence of pre-planned murder. How did this not make it into the documentary? So I think all of these pieces of evidence lined together show that while the crash was very entertaining, I think Netflix did profit off of a somewhat disingenuous picture, and at the end of the day, they did choose to be suspenseful instead of truthful. First, let me just say, may Dominic and Davion rest in peace, and my whole heart goes out to both of their families, who I know are actively speaking out and raising awareness in their community to support the truth. As for some current updates on Mackenzie, she is right now serving 15 years with her next parole hearing scheduled for the fall of 2037. And now new evidence has even come out showing she has violated numerous prison rules, and there are also phone calls released between Natalie and Mackenzie Shirilla showing their selfishness has not changed one bit. In one, she even asked Kim K to be her lawyer, and in another, they are discussing how Mackenzie can fake a seizure. Steve Shirilla was also placed on administrative leave from his teaching job. And as for some final thoughts, I would say watch the documentary with these acknowledgments in mind, but get the full picture of the case by following up with podcasts such as the Rotten Mangoes podcast and accessing the police archives for the full picture. There are also over 3,000 pages of Mackenzie and Dom's full text release, many of which I read through, and you can truly see behind the scenes how abusive she was. And please let this case serve as your reminder to be very careful who you spend your time with. While there's so much more I have to say, I do have to wrap up today's rant, and thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time on Shivani Statements. Bye!